So today with us, me, Olga Sidorishkina, film programmer for the Ukrainian Institute London, and the main guest, Mstyslav Chernov, please. Mstyslav, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing this story to us. That's very important, and it's a great honor to have a chance to screen it here in London. And I know that you are giving now lots of interviews all over the world about this film, and everywhere you're emphasizing how it was important for you to bring the audience to the battlefield, to the trenches, to show the perspective of those who lost their lives, or those who are still fighting. And I wanted to ask you when the idea to put in the audience in the war and guide us through it came to you.
First of all, thank you for being here. It's not easy to just step in on such a nice day and such a nice evening into a war zone, even for 2 hours. But I want always to remember myself, and I want to remind you how impossible this film would be without amazing courage and work of Ukrainian soldiers who have been filming all the battle scenes of this film, who have been fighting to liberate the land that I call home. Andriivka is 2 hours drive. Right now, under the drone fire, we have to drive really fast, so it's 1 hour from Kharkiv, my hometown. And that land is very dear to me. This story is very personal to me. And each one of those men, those who are alive and those who are no longer with us, is the main focus of this film. This film is about them, is for them. It's my flag that I carry for their memory, because flags are not just colors, they're not just sheets of within national colors. They are symbols. They're symbols of hope, and you can destroy a village, but you definitely cannot destroy a symbol. So that's to your question, to honor them. We, from the very beginning, knew that we want to tell a story which will focus on their perspective, which will focus on their experience. Because as it was said in the opening here, as we see a lot of abstract words in the world are being exchanged about how it's going to happen to Ukraine, what Ukrainians must do, which land Ukraine has to give away in order to achieve peace. It is very important to remember that that land is not just meters and kilometers, but someone's lives. And again, there is no other way to bring those abstract words or headlines or statements in rooms where politicians doing their important work, but still there is no other way to do it without actually just like placing them and us on the ground in a trench. I also want to add that the cat is fine. She visited recently one of the screenings in Ukraine, and she's big and happy. Also, just for the reference, I think it will be fair to say that this cinema is approximately the same width as the forest we've been walking through. So that's the space we are interacting with.
Thank you. For me personally, it's very important that we get to know all the characters, we familiar with their names, and all those people are now it's a part of the history. And you mentioned about the image of war and also about the new technologies. And yeah, modern technologies allowed us to see the war through the perspective we've never seen it before. And one of those, for example, is in your film. It's a footage recorded from the helmet cameras of soldiers. And I want to ask you, did you decide to use this footage from the early beginning when you was thinking about the idea of your film? And was it difficult for you to get the permission to use it? How it was processed?
I think this war is probably the most filmed, was the most filmed war in human history. So we are, as an audience, as filmmakers too, can experience it in a way that's unprecedented. And just an example, the battle of 600 meters that you've seen is edited. Michelle Meissner is an amazing editor. She worked with me on 20 days and we learned a lot back then, and now we worked for 2,000 meters. It's edited from 7 different cameras, right? 2 cameras at the headquarters, 2 cameras on the battlefield. One of them is 360 degrees, so you can reframe the shot afterwards. 2 drones, 1 camera with medics. So that level of participation of the audience and that level of immersing yourself into film, documentary film especially, it was not available. So interestingly, the cinema technology is going along with filmmaking technology is going along with the technologies of war. They developed in parallel. However sad or scary that sounds. So it was hard to get that footage. It's around 100 hours of GoPro footage. It was hard not just to get it, just to watch through it. Michelle was pregnant during the editing, and she gave birth to a beautiful boy 3 days, 2 or 3 days after our premiere at the Sundance. It was like a birth of 2 babies, if you can say that. But she had to watch through all that intense battlefield. We watched together, and a lot of it we didn't get in the beginning. A lot of it we were getting slowly. First we got the edited version that we asked consistently. We've been asking about for the unedited versions of these files, original files. A lot of those files came from the soldiers themselves because they are saving. Then there were conversations with the soldiers who filmed it, because they also this is a representation of their memory, right? It's not just the GoPro footage. It's not just the body cam, helmet cam footage. What we're seeing is what they remember. They might actually remember almost not like they remember nothing about that battle, and that's their memory. And the first battle that you saw, the Piros battle, first 10 minutes of the opening, it's edited a lot in a way that Piero himself edited that battle when he came out of it alive. So we approached it as human memory, not just as an assembly of shots. It's always hard to get permissions. It takes time and trust. And the first thing we saw was, so we came 2 months after the operation started. So we sort of went back 2 months and started digging through what had been filmed, and at the same time we continued following what was happening and the footage that was coming out from the battlefield while we were there.
Yes, and soldiers in your film, they are no more like objects of filming, they're subjects. They actually showing their perspective and probably a little bit on the copyright, I don't know. I think all these modern technologies, as in war, as in a documentary, might change the ethic of filming. What do you think, like modern ethic of filming the war is changing today?
Elaborate on that. What kind of change do you mean?
I mean the thing that soldiers are starting to be not an object but a subject they're filming. That's one point. And another point is all these new technologies, you are getting really closer to them. Probably, like as you mentioned, never before. And even in a feature film, some directors cannot have this luxury to have 7 cameras.
I would say when we are that close, when we are looking at human pain and sacrifice and tragedy so up close, then of course the only way to do it right is to experience it not as someone who's like peeking through the window, on someone else's pain, but have a certain level of participation, of physical participation. I don't mean take a gun and be next to them, but what I mean is if you ethically want to speak about someone's experience, and in some cases I speak, if not for them, but just for generations. So I speak for some of these people. You can't do that if you didn't share that experience. And of course you can't do that if you don't share with the audience their experience directly. So I think that's the appropriate way. I think the appropriate and ethical way to speak about someone's pain is not to observe it from a safe distance, but to be very close and hold the hand of a person who is going through that pain. Again, not in the face and not doing anything, just but be connected with that person.
Thank you. And as you were present there, you also held our hands during the film and guided us through their stories. And you mentioned Michelle Meiser, the editor of the film, who also had edited 20 Days to Mariupol. And I think lots of this, while you're watching this film, you're thrilled. This film carries lots of drama, lots of energy, and even suspense. Sometimes you even feel like a little bit, am I right to have all these feelings during the documentary film about the war? And I think it's a lot of thanks to her work and the editing. Have you had references or any ideas you shared with her before the editing?
Yeah, we do start editing work from having references. Same with the music, same with the editing. I remember, and the references can be visual, can be even like pacing or perspective references, or structural. Like one of the first films that we used as a reference was Dunkirk, because it also deals with the several temporal storylines, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week. And you may not notice it when you watch it for the first time, but it's there. Same for 2,000 meters. It deals with two storylines that are connected by the distance. And one storyline lasts for 1 day, one storyline lasts for 3 months. And it's becoming more clear when you sort of follow it. So you can watch it that way, you can just experience it as you're going through the film, but also you can find that both of these storylines merge in Andriivka, in the same basement, in the same moment. So the storyline that is 3 months ends with a captured Russian soldier, and a couple hours later we arrive to the same place and we sit down there in the same basement with Fidya. So that was one of the references. Another reference that was always important for us is Chris Marker's Sans Soleil. For some reason, that was always an inspiration, tonal inspiration for 20 days, but also for this one. Thin Red Line, if that makes sense. Yeah, Thin Red Line was always there. I think it just sort of stayed with me long time ago. And
actually, you mentioned feature films, not documentaries.
Yeah. That's not a coincidence. Chris Marker's Sans Soleil is a documentary, but we do use scripted feature films as a main reference. We build the structure of the 2,000 meters by the rules of scripted storytelling. The documentary luck have gifted us a possibility to do that, to having a forest, having a direct objective, and such a bright characters that are trying to reach that objective. It is something that you usually have in scripted cinema, and here we were lucky to have them, to find them, and then to keep that in the story. So yeah, those probably would be. I don't want to bring too much of this cinematic references because I don't want to create impression that my goal was to make a cinematic experience. My goal was to bring the audience as close to reality as possible. And that's what those feature films are doing too. But I just like cinema, so inevitably you reference your work to something. Like the first opening scene of the film, the first 10 minutes of the film, they filmed by Piro. I remember we watched that, and then we walked out of the edit room and we looked at each other and, is this real? Like, is it true what we just saw? Because it's so incredible. And then we discussed that we would love to, I said I would love to make this beginning of the film, to open the film in a 10-minute battle sequence even before you see the title of the film. It's not an easy choice. But then we brought up, but you remember Saving Private Ryan. Wasn't that similar? So yeah, those classic films were always a reference, but never a goal.
So cinema and reality, they talk to each other through film as well. And I would love to pass the mic to the audience. I believe you have lots of questions. Please raise your hand and we have a roving mic.
Thank you very much for the honor to ask a question and obviously to be here. My name is Olga. I'm a BBC journalist, but I'm not on site right now. Доброго вечора, дуже вам дякую. And first of all, I just want to say a huge thank you, Mstyslav, to your team for risking your life to document this hard reality and to bringing it to us, and for your powerful storytelling. Lots of questions really. I would try to focus on two, if I may. Well, first of all, is there anything which has been left? Because I can assume you had lots more powerful footage. So is there anything which has been left and you feel we, as an audience, have to know about? And have you've done absolutely unprecedented things for your home country, for Ukraine, and you won the first ever Oscar for the country during its independence. Have you ever experienced any barriers as a Ukrainian journalist? And I absolutely admire your work as a journalist. And have you ever experienced something like, someone telling you, you know, you are very talented, but maybe it's better to take someone with a sort of more British accent or more American accent to write. Or, you know, there are lots of stars who could sort of elevate your work to get more awards.
You mean for the voiceover, for example?
Perhaps. And
I'd love to. There was an idea when ask Lawrence Fishburne to narrate it, but then we decided to, you know, that we do speak about Ukraine, and I'm Ukrainian, and I'm speaking for there and about the community, and we have to. By the way, sorry, I remember your question about the references. There's this film narrated by Lawrence Fishburne, which is called Ashes and Snow. It's a beautiful, beautiful documentary by Gregory Colbert. That its poetry hasn't influenced me too. It's like a deep, deep, deep reference. Highly recommend it for you all. Go on, please. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, if you ever experienced such things, what would you advise to other Ukrainian journalists who are trying sort of to get their voices heard, but sometimes might be cast out as being, you know, you might be being impartial because you're Ukrainian, or, you know, there are more sort of talented, more British, more American native English speakers who could do it better. Thank you.
I think, first of all, I did not experience that directly because I felt that a lot of producers, good producers, those producers who I worked with, especially from PBS and from PBS Frontline and from AP, they do want a person from the country to be able to speak about the country, and but also having their brands. One of the reasons why my collaboration to, say, PBS Frontline is so important, because they have years and years and years of journalistic standards. They have trust of unbiased reporting, and that adds value to your emotional storytelling that you carry as a Ukrainian. So those collaborations work really well. And if you see most of the films that broke out from Ukraine that this year, with journalism is a bit different. Sorry, I'm already speaking from a cinema perspective. That most of them are collaborations with different countries. To me, it was always slightly, not always, like after 20 days after the academy, it did not make my life so much easier to make a new film, because besides what we learned, there is also a huge amount of expectations that is placed on our team, and expectations not only quality of work, but also like the country thinks that I have to speak for the country. Like I am now, whatever you say, I also say, whatever I say with my filmmaking, I also speak for Ukraine in some way, but at least that's how I feel. So that's like an additional responsibility. At the same time, there's a lot of prejudice that is, right now we're seeing, well, a lot. There's a certain amount of prejudice that we see that is expressed towards Ukrainian cinema and Ukrainian storytellers because they are expected to be speaking one-sided truth or propaganda, complete nonsense. But that's true. Film 2 years ago, having a Ukrainian film was a benefit. Now, having a Ukrainian film is an added difficulty because you have to prove that this is not propaganda. This is not, and propaganda I don't mean in any way right now in like a super negative way that it's a lie, but it's just a certain perspective. So, with all that in mind, this film was made, and it was a difficult task, but here again, Michelle and other producers on the film, and composer in that way, and everyone who worked on the film was an additional point of view that helped to walk this thin line between honoring the memory and courage of the soldiers, but at the same time giving an audience chance to evaluate what they see themselves.
Thank you. And if I remember correctly, you've been presenting your film at the Sheffield Doc Fest, and there were a public discussion about if there is too many Ukrainian documentary films.
But yes, I was invited to a panel discussion, which is called "Are there too many Ukrainian films?"
None.
And then I remember what they said there, like the first statement was, there are more music docs than Ukrainian films, so maybe not that much.
It's related to your answer that sometimes it feels like Ukrainian war films, it's a little bit too much, but it's not. And
It's definitely not. This is a year, it's a very special year for Ukrainian documentary cinema. We can see finally this emerging new wave of the modern Ukrainian documentary cinema, and it's beautiful, it's painful, it's tragic, but at the same time it's beautiful to see how different artists are showing the same event through their artistic perspectives.
Yeah, please, one more question.
Hi, Mstyslav. My name's Seb. Thank you for your excellent work.
Thank you.
I was wondering if, kind of a specific question, in the interest of capturing and portraying truth and reality, do you ever actually restrain your directorial instincts? For instance, do you ever watch back in the edit a sequence and then think to yourself, this is too cinematic, that it might risk kind of almost exaggerating events or not representing them properly?
Amazing question, thank you. Before going to you, I forgot I did not answer about something that was left out. I'm sorry, I don't remember who you asked it, but it's important. And there, of course, you have 100 hours of GoPro footage, then you have 50 more hours of other cameras, and of course there are so many things that I wanted to be in a film but were not. I'm coming to you from that exactly. There are there were amazing battles that I wanted to, they deserve their own like short films made about just battles that we see, but the most important things are conversations with more soldiers, more of these young men that we met, and knowing that each second of that conversation for the family is a treasure. The Sheva's wife, the man who is smoking a cigarette, who I speak to, Sheva's wife came to the screening in Kyiv, and then she watched it for the first time. She saw that he spoke about her, and he spoke about their grandson, and each second of that was a treasure. And I remember even conversation that we had in the edit room. The producer was saying, "Hey, maybe that scene is too long." And we sat there with Michelle and we thought, oh my God, no, it isn't. It is because every second is a treasure. We were very strict on limiting the time of the GoPro sequences, because scarily they became, when they're longer than 8 minutes, 7-8 minutes would be a limit to them. Scarily they become like a game. They start feeling like you're watching a computer game. And that's something that we had to be very aware of and dial down a lot of that thrill sometimes, or a lot of the moments.
Дуже приємно. I'm Christos. I'm a volunteer for the Ukrainian Institute London.
Thank you for your work.
I salute your courage. Thank you for your work. I want to keep this question laconic so that other people can ask and something to act on as well. So I've been supporting Unite 24, Come Back Alive, other charities, etc. every single month. Which one would be the one that you recommend, if any? And also, what else can we do apart from supporting volunteering? Is there anything I can't imagine? It's also a question towards the audience. If I will have a drink later on up there. So, is there anything else we can do to fight back and help?
I cannot tell you from the stage who to donate money to. I'm sorry, it's just not. Maybe in a private conversation I'll tell you, but I think each person has to decide for themselves, and someone is supporting military, someone is supporting civilians, someone is supporting medical workers. And I found that the most effective way for people to support is to find someone real, not just general, okay, well, that organization does what I like, or that organization does what I believe in. Finding a family, finding a unit, finding a doctor, as a very specific person with a name, with a task, and connecting with that person and supporting that person through, because it also brings human contact. Money is important, but it's not everything. It's much more. Sometimes it's more important for Ukrainians to remember that to feel that someone is thinking about them, someone is over there, cares. And that brings me to your second part of your question: what can we all do? And I think one of the biggest enemies of the modern society is indifference. And if indifference kills as much as the violence sometimes. So if we all can somehow fight that indifference, and it's quite understandable, we are bombarded by tragedies from all the sides. So we withdraw, we are overwhelmed, and we want to be indifferent. But that indifference is later used by people who want to destroy the society, who want to take over our society, and they use our indifference for their own benefit. So engage those who are around you in conversations, in following the news, in watching films, in discussions, and that goes very far, very, very far.
Вітаю. Thank you for your amazing work
Вітаю.
and your bravery. My name is Zhenya. I'm a final year journalism student here in London, but I hope to go back to Ukraine after graduating. My question is more about the military and their willingness to cooperate with you and to work with you, but also other journalistic projects like yours, and kind of the added risks to them, but also to you, bringing a person to camera, but also the importance of that. Thank you.
Sometimes actually the unit doesn't want to work with someone with a higher profile because they don't want attention. And sometimes, quite the contrary, they do. But I think all of the military right now understands that war is now happening in two different worlds. One is the physical world, and another one is a media space. And as an example, here's Andriivka and a flag that was raised over it. It's one thing to raise the flag, but another thing is to make a picture of it or a film about it. History is not what happened. History is how we remember it. And it's very important that we remember truth. And a picture of a flag is not only truth, but it's also a symbol. And as I said before, a symbol can't be destroyed. So they want to take you. It's a logistical nightmare. It's especially during the active fighting. Nobody cares about journalists or filmmakers, and it's most likely impossible to get through the higher level permissions because it's always just no by definition. But when you get to the middle chain commanders, they understand why this needs to be done, and help different brigades. There are brigades that rely heavily on their own media presence. They have their own YouTube channels, Instagram channels, and they know the power of image. Some brigades, they prefer to have a lower profile. So it's also choosing to who you go that matters.
Going back to the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade you filmed, and I know that you had a screening just for them. I believe it was very powerful and emotional. Can you tell us, not as a film director, but as Mstyslav Chernov, the person, how it was for you?
How it was for me, not for them, for you. For me.
For you to be in there with them showing a film.
What does it matter? It's what they experience that matters, no?
What's
Okay.
your experience?
Okay, but anyway, I'm gonna talk about them first. That was one of the screenings that was just for the brigade, and it was in one of the Kyiv multiplexes, and some of them came from the front line. We had a screening for them, like somewhere in the basement on the front line, but and Fedya came, of course, and he said, "Mstyslav, I'm now a bigger commander. Could you remove some of the swearing that I made?" I don't want my guys seeing me swearing like that. Yeah, he's amazing. But again, it's important for them to see all those who were before the new guys that are coming. They see what those who came before them experienced. Coming back to Kyiv, they come out of the cinema, and that's a cinema where a lot of different cinema theater, like a lot of the screens. So Formula One, How to Train Your Dragon, Lilo and Stitch, and 2000 meters Andriivka. They came out like this, right? And then all these people from quite a peaceful environment, from different films, going through the hall, and they tell me, "Hey, how do we get them here? How do I get them to our screening?" Because I felt how important it was for them to bring closer the civilians, the part of Ukrainian society, a small part, but still a significant part of Ukrainian society, who tries not to notice that the war is there, and just to get people to acknowledge what they're going through, in order for everyone else to be able to see Lilo on Stage and other amazing films. Why are you laughing? This is a great film. My daughter should love it. Anyway, so to my experience, I was in a theater, Zhovtin Cinema in Kyiv, 700 people, and I remember I was sitting on the stairs somewhere next to the exit, and this is the first time when I cried while watching the film, because families were there and they were seeing the film for the first time. So when people laughed when we spoke with Shepa about cigarettes, when people laughed when we spoke with Freak about our rival universities, I knew that their families, and when later people cried, I knew their families cherished those moments, that they felt the audience, they felt that people feel what their tragedy, but also they know now those who they loved. And they came out on the stage, and the audience was giving them 10 minutes standing applause. And then I thought, like, if everything fails and this film never leaves Ukraine, if it doesn't get to the bigger audiences, anyway, my job is done, because that was for them.
Thank you. And I want to mention that 2,000 meters to Andriivka, I think broke the record, broke the box office in Ukraine, and it's like lots of people seen this film, and it's still, I think, in a cinema in Ukraine. So you did a great job for them, and thank you so much for being here tonight with us. Thank you for bringing this story, and thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you.